do a tutorial on Thursday, but I'm going to do social media news today because some things have happened and I couldn't do the last lot of social media news as well. So, hello. My name's Laurel Papworth and I'm a social media strategist working primarily with government actually at the moment, and a few not-for-profits, but I woke up this morning and saw the news in Sydney time, what's been happening in the Capitol, is it Tower building? And I want to talk about the social media aspects of this, particularly Twitter stepping in and censoring a world leader, a president, corporate America, Silicon Valley, and why they've done it and what the impact is going to be. And we're going to talk about how social media is different from traditional media as well. If you haven't met me before, hello, my name's Laurel. On Mondays, I do social media news. And on, what's today? Thursday, Monday morning is social media news. Thursday afternoon is usually live tutorials. And I had planned a live tutorial. But for the last quite a few weeks, almost a month now, I'd been having Telstra NBN problems connecting, and so I wasn't able to go ahead with what I normally do on Mondays or Thursdays. And then the news has been so interesting today that I wanted to talk about how social media has played a role in what's going on, including the fact that Mike Pence unfollowed Donald Trump and then refollowed him, and then Twitter banned Donald Trump. So we're going to get into that in a moment. If you don't have an interest in social media, this may not be the show for you. There's some really good commentators on the political side of the fence. Heather Cox, is it Richardson, I think, is awesome. There's another guy that I follow on YouTube, David, someone, maybe Gary, if you're watching, you could throw his name up in the chat because I can't remember, David Pakeshi. Anyway, he's good. There's a few. Not sure about the Young Turks, but there's a few different, I guess, social commentators, and particularly with Heather, she has a background in history and political history and the Confederates and a whole range of things. She's a university lecturer, so she has some deep insight. She's like an original source building her own channel through her YouTube and Facebook Lives. But we're not doing that. We're going to talk about social media. Facebook and the Twitters and everything else. So let's move on to that. The first thing I'm going to do is go through my RSS reader, and I just want to see what the headlines are. And I've chosen the section of traditional media who have social media sections. I want to see what those social media sections are saying. By the way, if I'm too quiet, please let me know. I've reorganized my whole room, and I know with this mic, it's particularly sensitive. And I bought it so that it wouldn't give you guys the fans that are going on in the room, including my computer fan. And then I bought a fanless computer. I bought the new Mac M1 ARM64, super fast, super everything without a fan. So there you go. I don't need this mic, but we'll keep with this mic for the time being. And John, I know you bought yourself one as a Christmas present after seeing me using it. So, oops. That's why I'm never going to be an influencer. Okay, so white privilege on display, police hypocrisy condemned after pro-Trump insurgents. Let's see what this has to do with social media. It's from the Guardian social media section. So social media users lambast president and compare police treatment of racial injustice protesters with response to mob. And I think the idea here was that Trump had peaceful protesters tear-gassed outside of the church that he went to with the Bible, the book. And then somebody got shot and was killed here, so it's not like they did nothing at all. If I was to draw out a customer avatar, like one of those social media psychographics that you need for your core audiences and your Facebook ad audiences and things like that. It would be important to understand that the people who are running around Capitol building, pointing guns and things like that have money. They have money to travel. They have money. I think they built a bomb, an IED, and placed it in Republican headquarters. They're funded in some way. So this is not super poor people. Don't think of it as that way. This is middle class, white America. Yeah, peaceful protesters got pepper sprayed. Church, blah, blah, blah. I did hear a story that there was a lot of photos on social media about the protesters cuddling up and having selfies taken with the local police. Now, I don't know enough about law and legal processes in America, but some of the questions are, why weren't there more police there or military or something? And everybody knew it was going to be a flashpoint. What happened? I think another one, though, to consider is that it was important that people got moved out of the area first and then deal with the protesters second. So rounding up the electoral officials and moving them to a safe space. I want to know more about, apparently one of the staffers broke away, ran across, grabbed the electoral votes and saved them and took off. I want to know more about her. I think that's pretty awesome. David Pakman. Thank you, Gary. Yes, David Pakman. It's his channel that if you want to listen to user-generated content of somebody who's insightful into what's happening and does lives, then he's a good one to follow. So, okay, we've got, I guess, a rerun in a different way of Black Lives Matters and the social injustice that's occurring in America. What else do we have here? I'll pick up both of these. We'll see what the difference is. Twitter locks Trump's account and threatens permanent ban. So what happens when I go there? Real Donald Trump. This tweet's no longer available. So it doesn't say he's been banned. Does it? Am I missing something? It looks like they've removed a whole bunch of his tweets. They did leave the one. Now, what was interesting with the tweets is this one asked people to remain peaceful. And then this one was a video that I watched and actually reported. He was definitely inciting people. And then this third one up here was more like a inciting, but through gaslighting and dog whistling, which is very interesting on social media. We call them sometimes Fight Club, but also the hidden angel, or not angels. What's the term we use? It's the person behind the scenes. I forget what it's called. Facebook.com/Laurel Papworth. Me. My personal account. And I'm pretty sure I put his tweet up somewhere. Yeah, I did. Okay. So this one's been blocked. These are the things and events that happen when a sacred landslide election victory to him is so unceremoniously and viciously stripped away from great patriots who've been badly and unfairly treated for so long. Then he says, so that's, dog whistling is deflection. It's very, you can see it in PR marketing quite often. It's using fear and hope, but you deflect. You state something, then you have something that makes people think, oh, it's not that bad. But if your button's been pushed, then you hear what's actually being said. Go home with love and in peace, quotation marks. Remember this day forever, exhorting that. So why do I think that this is dog whistling on social media? Well, if I have a look at the ads, library, is this his? Yeah, it is. Okay. So he spent $113 million since May on ads, stopped advertising completely after the election, not completely, but fairly much, then started again. And the new ads are things like, there is no middle ground, we need to defend America. I'm hoping you can see that clearly. If you can't, please let me know. LinkedIn, you may not be able to because they downrate and then they uprate, so the codec. So if it's fuzzy, it'll be fine in a few days when nobody's watching it anymore. For everybody else, it should be pretty clear. So what we have is stop socialism. We need to defend America. Joe Biden openly admitted his plan, let me hide me, you don't need to see me, to violate our Second Amendment rights, unconstitutional, Antifa, come and take it. It's that exhorting people, come and take my guns, see what happens. And I would call this dog whistling. Anybody else would look at it and say, no, it's just ads, who cares? It's not. If you don't have skin in the game, it's not important. If you do have skin in the game and you're responding at an emotional or gut level, this is telling people what to do. How do I explain dog whistling? Have you ever had a partner or a family member who only has to look at you cross-eyed and you're ready to hit them, you're ready to get violent with them, you're ready to maybe not be violent physically, but with words like, don't look at me like that. And it's because you've played out this little game for so long and you know how to press each other's buttons, and an outsider looks at you and says, you're crazy, you're psycho. But it's those buttons, and it's about building up over time the storytelling, the marketing story that allows those buttons to be pressed immediately. Bang, done. So this is by no means the first lot of ads that went out. These are ongoing storytelling in order to ensure that the message keeps getting out. Now, one of the things I do like to do is have a quick look at the targeting. That is odd. Primarily women across the board, 30 and over. And look how many were shown in the over 65 age group. Michigan, Pennsylvania, Florida. California will be at the bottom of that list. Let me go back to another one. Let me just see one of the big active ones. So I go to here and I'm just going to choose potential reach, and let's take a big one. Oh, that's November. I need something recent. Take some smaller ones. 100,000 people or something. That'll be okay. And let me have a look at, let me just change this to date. If you've never done this before, it's lots of fun. You can see how things have, now there's been a lot of blocking of ads. That's why I want to talk about some of the other stuff as well. So we want I want a date range from the, let's say 1st of December to the 31st. No. 1st of December. 1st of December to the 1st of Jan. Why do I have to undo that one first? It's annoying. 1st of December to the 7th. Apply. Why am I looking at ads? He doesn't have any. So they were blocked. and they have shared disclaimers. That's odd. That's really odd. If you look at the dollar spent in the last 7 days, it's $0 from spending 113 million. Why would you stop your messaging as you're trying to activate the base? I don't know. I think it has something to do with the next thing. So blocking the account. They've removed 2 of his tweets. They've locked the account for 12 hours. Unless he removes the tweets on his own. And they're going to permanently block him if there's any future violations. That's interesting. This is going to be a problem for Twitter and by default for Facebook, LinkedIn, and all the other platforms. Media claims to be impartial. Forget what you think about fake news and the fact that Murdoch owns, there's 2 oligarchs that own most of the media in the world. I think there's only 2 that own all the British newspapers, so or the main ones. So, you've got your Murdochs of the world and things like that. Forget about that. Put it to one side. Journalists in the main try to remain impartial. They try to give us our medicine. They try to tell us what's really going on, supposedly. And our trust of that has been diminished almost definitely. It's been hastened by politicians calling media liars and saying that they didn't say something, even though it's recorded audio and video and published. They still say they didn't do that. That's not them. So that's interesting. Then you have platforms who are the opposite. They are deliberately censoring. They're stepping in. So you have American companies, Silicon Valley-based companies, stepping in and censoring world leaders, presidents, and things like that. That's an issue. And I don't know. I think both are an issue. I think traditional media, heritage media, publishing every single thing that Trump does without sorting it and curating it, showing him and his rage tweeting at 3:00 in the morning and letting that have prime position, as opposed to the arms deal that went through in the last couple of weeks in the Middle East, didn't get much airtime, as opposed to the billions of dollars that he's now hurrying to sell off of the 5G network and the attendant potential possible kickbacks. All of that stuff gets put to one side because of, he can deflect so easily a traditional media view, which is we don't make the news, they make the news, but then with no strategic vision of how they're being manipulated and no pushback. There's no real pushback. I don't see a concerted effort to have a social PR group do PR for traditional media. They seem to stomp their feet and go, well, that's not true. We just do the facts and then let the facts speak for themselves. And I've got news for them. That's not how comms work. That's not how human beings work. And when you own the vertical, which Murdoch was very adamant he wanted to do, he said, I want to own everything from the trees that I published my newspapers on to the tire factories that the newspaper deliveries are made on, all the way up the vertical. When you own the vertical, you don't have to worry about truthiness or people questioning the truthiness. But when social media disintermediates media, removes the middleman, you do have to. And I think this is hard hard for traditional media to get their head around, but there is no traditional media anymore. It's now independent media. So think about independent movies, independent TV series, and getting funding and working as an indie producer is number one. To think about media that way, social media that way. Another one is there's lots of awesome videos on YouTube with 10 views. There's no PR. There are people who've been hassled, criticized, trolled, and it's gone into folklore that the things that they didn't say, they said, or, misunderstandings. And without PR, without any kind of driving force to push back on this, you can write the facts and you can write the truthiness till the cows come home, and people will just ignore you, diss you. And in the case of the Capitol building, one of the speakers there with the megaphone asked people to attack journalists. So it flips into something much, much more. I thought that, I don't know, I kind of thought that heritage media would just die slowly, rotting on the vine. And I think it's going to go out with a bang, not a whimper. I think there will be assassinations by local people of local journalists. And that's going to be absolutely heartbreaking. And they'll all say, but all we did was report the facts. But, you got to do more than that. You've got to do more than that. You've got to find an organization, not one of those media organizations that's talking within its little circle of media people talking to media people and journalists talking to journalists. You've got to find a way of educating the general population on standards and regulations and everything that you're doing to safeguard the truth. Otherwise, these Muppets can come along and just by incessantly saying fake news, media lies, you end up with a big problem. It doesn't help, of course, that investigative journalists get put in exactly the same basket as opinion, and I call them entertainment writers, opinion writers. Those radio hosts and TV hosts and newspaper columnists that are writing opinions, that's not facts. They have an agenda. And of course, it's confusing for people because they turn on the news and hear the facts, and then they hear an opinion celebrity kind of host talking, and they conflate the two. That becomes news for them. And there's nothing in regulations to change that. I actually had a discussion with media regulatory bodies about it, and they don't differentiate between morning news and morning TV. Let's just put it that way. All right, let's keep going. So Forbes has reported on the lock on Trump's account, and the New York Times are as well. Jack Dorsey looks different than the last time I saw him. There'll be a court case against Twitter for this, absolutely. I don't see Trump's legal team putting up with it. And then Facebook has barred him for... Oh, maybe that's why we're not seeing the ads. It's a recent thing, so they've removed everything. That would make sense, except surely we should see the historical stuff in here. We don't see anything after November. And by the way, I know they did because I've been doing Zooms in December showing people these. So there definitely were ads in here. Active and inactive, disclaimer, platform, potential reach. And I've got all of them. All platforms, all disclaimers, active and inactive. It is 2021, right? Are you getting the feeling that we all thought, 2020 is over, it's going to be good, and then 2020 went, I was the worst year ever, and now 2021 is saying, hold my beer. Thanks, 2021. We don't need that. I was thinking the other day, in 2019, I put up something like, oh, I don't have me days or me time. I try to create a life that I love so that I don't need to have getaways and escape from my life. You know, if you love your life, you don't need to escape from it. And then, so there's no need for all those me things. And then this year I'm like, give me the chocolate, give me the wine, give me the baths, give me the weekends away, give me everything. I can no longer create a life where it's just all sunshine and maybe everything after January the 20th will change. I don't know, and COVID's gone and all that rubbish. This requesting of American companies to shut down conversations, I still have an issue with it. It means it's entirely within the purview of China or the Middle East or any authoritarian group to force Twitter and Facebook to shut down the people they disagree with as well. Are the Hong Kong demonstrators rioters? In whose opinion? This operating in closed social media networks, I joined one of those networks and it was very interesting. Everybody I was recommended in the feed were extremely gung-ho right-wing people, and the platform itself was trying to encourage me to follow those people. So the closed platforms, you know, you've got Facebook and Twitter on one hand kind of trying to do the right thing, even though they're interfering with sort of a democratic process, of definitely under free speech. Again, not 100% saying they shouldn't. I'm just saying you have to weigh that up with traditional media that goes too far the other way and reports on every single thing. And then you have these closed platforms that you and I know about them, but only because I'm in the groups. They get on there so that they can organize things, and then it's closed. Really closed. Storm the Capitol. I find it interesting that the monitoring dashboards of police and military and things like that, and even intelligence, don't seem to be tracking things that I do with my free tools. So you could easily find the Storm the Capitol hashtag, pull it into a dashboard, see the volume of tweets. Are 98% of the people going to stay home? Yeah, sure. But there should be indications on there if organizations are if groups are self-organizing. So, yeah. Just checking. We've been going 28 minutes. We looked at the Facebook ads. We've looked at Twitter suspending Trump's account. We looked at some of the tweets and the updates. We looked at the psychographics for the rioters, looting, shootings, and so on. What else did I want to go through with you? We talked about dog whistling through social media. How the storming of Capitol Hill was organized on social media. Yeah, exactly. Let me go on here. I've got to log in. I don't want to do that right now. How quickly the mood changes. The funniest things, 2 types of attention, the tech that will invade our lives, even record turnout, and then storming of the Capitol. Twitter blocks replies. Twitter blocks this. Twitter blocks that. I wanted to play you the video of Trump. It's a 2-minute video that Trump talked directly to his supporters inside the Capitol building. But Twitter blocked it. but it was a very interesting example of deflection. And he's very good at deflection, of saying one thing that kind of sounds okay and then shifts into something completely different. And it's often on keywords that are pejorative or have an emotional content around those keywords. Things that you and I would let slip by, but then even the word flag, the way that flag is used is interesting. Okay. All right. So we didn't get to see the ads. I don't understand where they've gone. And this is all the ads. This is the ads for Team Trump, Women for Trump, Mike Pence, Trump for Pennsylvania, Trump for Florida, all of the different Trumps. None of them have an ad showing currently. And like I said, this could be to do with the suspension of Trump from Facebook as well as from Twitter, but it's kind of annoying. I do regularly take videos and screenshots, so I actually have one from yesterday, which I'm pretty sure has some stuff on it, but never mind. I'm not going to go digging it up now. The last thing that I want to talk about is reading things into things. What do I mean by that? If I go to Mike Pence, and then we go to, he's got 6 million followers and he's following 48 people. What you'll notice is that Donald Trump is at the top of the list. And something we know about Twitter is last in, best dressed. Meaning the most recent person that Mike Pence has followed is at the top. And the people that he's followed in the past are near the bottom. And that's because this morning I saw a screenshot that said that Mike Pence was following 47 people and Donald Trump wasn't on the list. So he's re-followed Donald Trump. The period of time that this following and unfollowing happened, and you might think, oh, who cares if they're friends on Facebook or they're following each other on Twitter, but timing's critical. Mike Pence put out a statement about his spiritual beliefs and religion, and that he was going to he's going to work with his conscience when it comes to the electoral roll, and he basically pushed back on Donald Trump. Donald Trump then tweeted against him, and I forget what he called him. I don't even know if it's still there. Let's have a quick look. I think they only deleted 2 of his tweets. So let's have a quick look. If Vice President, we want... he's calling on Mike Pence to say or do something. There was definitely something where he wasn't polite to Mike Pence. And I thought that was the trigger for Pence not to not to follow Trump anymore, to unfollow him. But something else happened in the meantime. I don't know, it's such a mess. Everything's being deleted and hidden. And I can't. It's all about the rigged election. They should just... Okay. So what happened was New York Times reported that it was Mike Pence that authorized the National Guard, is it, to go in. And I thought that was interesting because that's not the role of a vice president. He's supposed to, that's supposed to be the president's job to do that. So what I was looking for was some sort of behavior that indicated why this was going on and when it happened. And I'll just show you another tweet. And it basically was the press secretary saying that that President Trump had sent the National Guard in. And it wasn't true. Let me have a look. Here we go. This one up. At President Real Donald Trump's direction, the National Guard is on the way along with other federal protective services. We reiterate President Trump's call against violence and to remain peaceful. President Trump didn't. He didn't say anything for hours, several hours into the demonstrations and protesting, and then it was Mike Pence with some other entities that got together and called in the National Guard. And this is Kayleigh McEnany covering the fact that Trump didn't do this by saying it was Trump that did it. I'm interested in Pence unfollows Trump, makes this move probably against Trump's direction, and now Trump is scrambling to make it look like it's his idea. In all likelihood, I think we'll see Donald Trump resign before January the 20th. He'll resign because that is under his control, whereas being removed from office, if Pence feels strong enough to go get the National Guard and do that on his own, then he's definitely building up against Trump. And also, if he gets removed from office or if he loses the election, that's a negative. But if he resigns, he took control. I can't work in this anymore, throws the toys out of the pram and walks out. It's a much more likely scenario for this president in this situation. And his followers would say, well, it's justified. He's stressed. He can't get things done. People aren't working with him. So I think we need to see what's going to happen definitely by, it's Thursday afternoon here, by Monday morning next week. Maybe my Monday morning news will have some more news for us. But yeah, there's something very telling about that unfollowing and then refollowing. Why refollowed? Maybe they weren't ready yet. We don't know. All right. I think that's enough. That's a half an hour of me rambling on about social media, what's been happening, particularly on Twitter. Always remember, Twitter is the place for distributed media and headlines, because you can't fit in much more than that. So short and succinct headlines go out, and distributed because you can link to something you did elsewhere, usually. Although I did notice that the video that Donald Trump did, the second to last tweet that was cancelled, was actually on Periscope. And of course, Periscope comes to an end in a few weeks. So if you're watching this on Twitter, I'm sorry, you won't be able to watch it for much more. I'll try and tweet out the live link to either the Facebook or the YouTube. So bringing this to an end and wrapping up, I think it's an interesting time. I did hear lots of senior people in politics saying, well, if democracy is broken, I think we can agree it is. Representational democracy. What are the options? And I would like to leave you thinking about this. I'm certain direct democracy is the way forward. Voting in representatives that do not represent us, and they can make all the promises in the world and then completely ignore them once they're in the seat, or I'm sorry, you don't understand what it's like and I can't push this agenda just at the moment, all that sort of stuff. We are no longer willing to hear that. And so representational democracy that's unrepresentative is dead. And this is part of it. It's a steaming pile of decomposing matter. Representational democracy requires something that we don't have, and that is an educational system that focuses on civics, which is how, by the way, ancient Greece saw education. It was to create good citizens within the civics community. Our educational system is focusing on preparing corporate factory workers. Go and get a good degree, get a good mark so you can get a good job and you can enter into the corporate factory system. we need education to teach people about facts and science and climate and the issues that are before us as humanity, and we stop handing those issues across to people and walking away going, well, I voted them in for 3 years or 4 years, they'll take care of it. And I'm not proposing socialism. Am I proposing libertarianism? No. But I am thinking it's by the people, for the people, rather than for the people, by the people. Whatever. If you have any thoughts on peer-to-peer politics, any thoughts on social politics, any thoughts on direct democracy, please let me know. It's an area I've been madly in love with for decades. And so I'm a little bit biased there. And yeah. All right. Thank you for staying with me so far. I hope you found it interesting. And yes, that plant is dying. I don't expect to see... Oh, mind you, I've said months ago I don't expect to see it in the next video and it recovered. I think I have to water it or something. I don't know. And I'm going to love you and leave you. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments. And I live stream Monday mornings, Thursday afternoons, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube. So, yeah, I'll see you soon. Gotta love you and leave you, I think is how I've been signing off. So there you go.